In this section of Topic 1, we're going to be learning about first declension nouns. We're going to be focusing on what the inflectional endings are for the cases for first declension noun. And we're also going to learn about how to decline a noun. We're going to be practicing with first declension nouns, but all of the procedures that we will learn about declining a noun for first declension nouns will apply to nouns from second and third declension as well. You should have your noun declension ending chart in front of you. If you do not have one, you can go into the previous section and copy the PDF file that's there. Or if you go into the opening section of Moodle, at the very bottom of that, you will find a heading, Useful Items for Latin Students. There will be a folder in there with the noun declension ending chart. That's where I'll place all of the charts for you as we progress through the semester, so that if you ever need to print yourself another copy, you do not need to go into the individual topics, but you can always go to that specific spot and find the chart that you need. If you have your chart in front of you, you should already have filled in the names of the cases from our lecture on cases in the previous section, and good for you for making it this far. It shows that you have a really adept understanding of the material thus far. Now you're ready to get one of the biggest components of dealing with the language so that you can start to put it all together. Knowing what the inflectional endings are for a noun and what case they represent is really the key for helping us to understand how to read Latin. So the work that we're going to put into learning the endings and understanding them and using them is very, very, very important. It really will be to your benefit to have the endings memorized, but I'm not there to make sure that you do memorize them. So most of the work that you're going to be graded on is going to be about your use and understanding and application of the material. There may be a few checking for understanding quizzes, and I haven't decided if there's going to be a summative evaluation yet, which will involve your memorization of material or not. If there is, it would be one that would have a very specific time limit on it, and you would have to be able to do it very quickly, which would mean that you wouldn't be able to have your notes in front of you. At any rate, as you know, because many of you have studied languages previous to this, the more skilled you want to become at using the language, the more things you have to memorize. If your primary interest is learning to read Latin in a classroom setting and you're not interested in becoming a teacher or anything like that of the language, then having a great familiarity with how things work and having your charts very close by will allow you to be able to do all of the things that you need to do. So let's get started and take a look at first declension noun endings. You might have the singular forms written from when we talked about the uses of the cases. I'm going to say each one, and we're going to practice saying them together, and then we're going to, as I said, move forward and talk about the method for declining a noun and do some practice with that in this lecture. So our nominative singular ending is a short A. It makes the sound a. The genitive singular ending is a vowel combination called a diphthong of AE. In Latin, all letters are pronounced individually or separately in a Latin word, except for a few combinations of vowels called diphthongs. The most popular one that we will encounter is the combination of A and E, and when it is pronounced as a single sound, the sound it makes is I. So we have a, I. The dative singular case ending for first declension looks exactly the same as the genitive. If you're curious about how you'll be able to distinguish the two in context, it will have to do with understanding sentence structure and just that, context of the sentence. Does it make sense to have a possessive noun in this sentence, or does it make sense to have an indirect object or a noun beginning with 2 or 4 in this sentence? So it'll be something of trial and error, and you'll have to try if-then situations. The accusative singular inflectional ending for first declension is So far we have I, And the ablative singular ending is a long A. I'm not going to go through the steps I need to make the long mark over the A. It's not necessary for you to write the long mark over the A. You only need to know that it has a long mark over it for the purpose of why I'm pronouncing it differently than the nominative form. I pronounce the ablative ending ah instead of because it is a long A sound. If you were to go online, or if you have a Latin textbook in your possession, you might find that some authors will use the long marks and some will not. It's not as important in Latin as it is in Spanish or French, where you have accent marks which make the difference between the meanings of words. That's really not a concern in Latin. In Latin, we're looking mostly at the spelling of the inflection. And remember that we use the abbreviation S-A-N for the vocative, and we have a little asterisk next to that, and then up at the top of our chart we're going to remind ourselves that S-A-N means that this ending looks the same as the nominative. So the singular endings are I, ah. And when we repeat the endings, we almost never in any of the years that I was learning Latin, did we ever say or repeat or write the vocative ending. We just learned the rule that the vocative is going to look the same as the nominative, and so we never bothered writing it out. So when I say them, you're never actually going to hear me say the vocative ending, although I will expect you to remember that the vocative ending looks the same as the nominative. So here they go again. The first declension inflection endings or noun endings are I, ah. How about if you try to say the singular ending after me? I, ah. Let's try it saying them together. Are you ready? I'll count to 3 and then we'll both begin. 1, 2, 3. I, ah. Good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Ah. Now remember, as you're memorizing these endings, and that is what you should do, it will make life much easier for you. As you memorize them, you'll need to remember that they are in the order of the cases. So is accusative, which means direct object. It's all going to start to work together. Let's go ahead and fill in our plural forms. The plural nominative starts with I, again, so we're going to have lots of fun trying to distinguish whether we're looking at a genitive form, a dative form, or a nominative plural form. The genitive plural ending is spelled A-R-U-M and is pronounced arum. Notice how the A is drawn out, room. That makes it a long A sound, room. The dative ending looks like the word is in English, but there are a couple of things you need to understand about pronouncing Latin, and one is that the letter S is never going to sound like a Z. It's always going to sound like an S sound, like a snake. So this ending is pronounced is. The reason it's pronounced is because the I makes a long sound, and in Latin a long I sounds like E. So this ending is pronounced is. The accusative ending is spelled as, which if we were speaking English we would pronounce as, but the A is long, so it's going to sound like ah, and remember S always sounds like S. So this ending is actually pronounced as. And then the ablative plural ending is going to look like the dative plural, so it would be pronounced is. The vocative plural is going to look the same as the nominative plural. So the plural first declension endings are I, aurum, is, as, is. If we say them together, actually I'm going to start by having you pronounce the ending immediately after me. So I will say the nominative ending and then you say it. So I, aurum, is, as, is. And once again, we're not going to say the vocative ending because what we're always going to remember is that the vocative looks the same as the nominative. Let's try one more time. I'll say the ending, you say it after me. I, aurum, is, as, is. Good. Now, I'll count to 3, and together we will say the plural endings. 1, 2, 3. I, aurum, is, as, is. Excellent. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I, aurum, is, as, is. Fantastic. Now what we're going to do is go back to the top and we're going to pronounce the endings together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I, 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 aurum, is, as, is. Excellent. Remember, we're not saying the vocative because the vocative, we always need to remember, looks the same as the nominative. If you're wondering if there are any exceptions to that rule, there is one exception, and we will talk about that when it occurs. Not to worry about for right now. Okay, so let's go back and say the endings one more time. On the count of 3, we'll say them together, singular through plural. 1, 2, 3. I, 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 aurum, is, as, is. Excellent. So you should spend some time doing some repetition work with these and getting familiar with them. After the lecture, you'll notice that there are a couple of different sets of flashcards to help you practice your first declension noun endings. And at the end of this topic or section within the noun topic, there will also be a checking for understanding quiz, which you will need to pass with 90% accuracy before you can go on to do some of the other activities. At the end of this topic, you will also discover that there are graded activities which you will need to complete based on your understanding and use of first declension noun endings and the names of the cases. Now, one of the things I said you would have to learn to do would be to decline a noun. So what does it mean to decline a noun? Let's talk about that. See if I can get a new page up for you. Yeah, I'll just do this. So here we're going to talk about what does it mean to decline a noun. So to decline a noun is to write a noun in all of its case forms, except the vocative. We usually don't write the vocative. You can, but it's not required when you decline a noun because, once again, we simply remember that the vocative looks the same as the nominative. There are 3 steps for declining a noun. And these 3 steps are applied to all declensions. So even though we're only working with first declension right now, whatever we're learning about declining a noun, we're going to be able to do with any declension in any set of inflections that we learn. Step 1, and do it like this, is to write the nominative and genitive form as they are given to you on the vocabulary list by the teacher. So whenever I'm going to ask you to decline a noun, I'm always going to tell you the nominative and genitive form of the noun that I want you to decline. So you'll simply start by writing down the nominative and the genitive form. Step 2 is to get the base of the noun by removing the genitive ending. So if we're dealing with first declension nouns, the genitive ending is AE, and the base for that noun would be all of the letters that are left over when you remove the AE. Step 3 would be to add the remaining case endings to the noun base until all of the case forms are written. Let's take a look at an example. Regina, reginae, is the Latin word for queen. So if I ask you to decline, here's my instruction, decline the noun queen, you're going to start by doing step 1, writing the nominative and then the genitive form, and then you will remove the genitive ending, which is AE, to get the base, and then you will add the remaining case endings. These are the singular forms, and because when you decline a noun, you are writing the noun in all of its case forms, that includes singular and plural. So we do the base again, and now we're adding the plural endings. so that when it is declined, it looks like this. The most important thing also that you want to remember from this is if I ever ask you to compose a sentence in Latin and you have to write a noun in a specific form, say the accusative plural form, you're going to write the noun in the accusative plural form by getting the base of the noun and attaching the appropriate ending. So that's really the other important thing to take away from this. How about if you have your chart with your endings in front of you and a piece of paper, and how about if you try to decline a first declension noun? I'm going to ask you to decline the noun terra, terrae. This noun means land. So I'd like you to practice declining the noun terra, terrae on a piece of paper that you have with you, or on a whiteboard if you keep a whiteboard handy, or if you want to do it on your computer and then come back and check your answers, you can do that. I'll give you a few seconds to decline the noun terra, terrae, which is the Latin noun for land. So remember, you start by writing the nominative and the genitive form. You get the base of the noun by removing the genitive ending, so the base is going to be ter, T-E-R-R, and then you add the remaining inflectional endings until you have written all of the case forms. You should end up with 10 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. We didn't miss any. Did you get it right? Excellent if you did. If you didn't, take a look at yours and see where you went wrong. See if you can figure it out. If you're not sure, go back and review the steps or send me an email and ask a question, and I'll try to answer you as soon as I can. Let's try another example, and I'm going to go down onto a new page because it will disappear soon enough. Actually, let me just come up this way. Yeah, go back. Decline the noun via, viae. This is a Latin word that means road, and we actually use this word in English. We use the word via. Hey, did you notice, by the way, when I pronounced this, that I didn't say V like a V, but I pronounced it like a W? That's because in Latin, the sound for V doesn't exist. And here's something else that's kind of goofy. There is no letter W. You can have two U's, an actual double U, next to each other in a word, but the letter W does not actually exist in the language, even though its sound does. Isn't that kind of weird? So this is the word for road, via, viae. And like I said, we use this word via in English. For example, sometimes in English you may hear this. This broadcast is coming to you live via Los Angeles. I don't know, you're watching something on TV and it's being broadcast live from, by way of, via Los Angeles, or Maybe it says via satellite, something like that. So that's how we actually use that Latin word in English. Okay, so your task is to decline the noun road in Latin. Now I picked this noun specifically because I want to make sure that you understand, follow the 3 steps and you'll get the correct answers. Latin's very good about that. If it gives you a set of procedures, all you really need to do is follow them and you will always come up with the right answer. If you start to second guess yourself, as you might do as you're declining this noun, you could get incorrect answers. So I'll be quiet now so you can practice declining the noun. If we were ever to have a test on this, it would likely be that I would ask you to choose the dative plural form of the noun, and then you would have a list of things that you'd have to pick from, and so you would have to know your endings very quickly. In my classroom, I would ask you to write this out, and if you were testing, you should be able to decline a noun in anywhere from 20 to 40 seconds. It should be something that you do very, very quickly because you know the endings very well and you know what they are and how to get them. So we write the nominative form and the genitive form. We get the base of the noun by removing the genitive ending, so that means that for the word road, the base is the letters VI. And then we attach the remaining first declension noun endings. So everything is great so far until we get to the first ending that starts with an I, the dative plural ending. And it's very difficult for speakers of English to write double I's. That's not something that we see too often in English. There are a few words, like Hawaii has a double I at the end, and when you write the word ski and you say that you like skiing, that has a double I. But those are not commonly used words where we have double I's. So it kind of freaks us out a little bit, and we want to second guess and kind of drop one of the I's, but if we do, we haven't declined the noun properly. All you have to do is follow the rule, which is to write the base and then attach the ending. And when you write the base ends with I, the ending starts with I, so you end up with a double I. And yes, you do pronounce both I's. So that word is going to sound like this, wittis in Latin. That's how you would say that. So I might ask you to write the singular direct object form of the noun puella, puelli. You might remember from a previous lecture that this is our name for girl. So now I've just asked you to write a specific form instead of decline the noun. You will follow the same steps. You'll get the base, and you will remove the genitive ending by removing the genitive ending, and then you will add the appropriate form, which would be accusative singular. If I were to ask you to write the nominative singular form of the noun wita, witai, all you have to do is write the first form of the word that I give you, because that's always the nominative form. If I ask you to write the genitive singular form of the noun regina, reginae, you simply have to write the second word given to you because that's the genitive form. I might ask you to write the plural possessive form of the noun regina, reginae. If I ask you to do that, you're going to have to think about what case shows possession, And remember that that's genitive. You have to remember that I'm asking you to do plural. So you have to find the base of the noun by removing the genitive ending, and then you're going to have to write the plural possessive ending, or the genitive plural ending, onto the noun. If you use the Quizlet flashcards, which are located after this lecture, I will ask you to do things like that. You want to be able to do that very quickly and become very confident with doing those sorts of things. So, it's a lot in this particular lecture, but we've actually, as we've been doing this, have learned two things: the inflectional endings for first declension nouns, and also how to decline any noun, but specifically a first declension noun. It's time for you to start working with the inflectional endings, writing some first declension nouns, and then we're going to do some practice with using first declension nouns in sentences and do a little composing, and then eventually, by the time you're finished with this particular section in Latin nouns, you're going to read some sentences using your knowledge of first declension inflectional endings. Good luck!